Begin with the prayer. This prayer is on page 172 of Universal Prayers, of the book Universal Prayers. The last one on that page. The third one on that page. This is seeking the grace, blessings of the Lord. Om Tamasiravirivojjanmajjatamamburashau Plava iva trishitanam sadhuvarshiva megha Nidiriva vidananam dirgativramayanam Vishagiva koshalam no dhatumaya tu shauri Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Just like the sun flashing forth light unto one enshrouded in darkness, like the boat rescuing a person sinking in the sea, like the cloud showering forth its refreshing waters on the thirsty, like the storehouse of wealth removing the distress of the penniless, and like the physician bringing relief to a person suffering from a long and painful disease, may He, the Supreme Lord, come and grant to us what is auspicious. Om. Peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. Adi Bhautika Shanti. And may there be peace everywhere in nature. Adi Devika Shanti. So let us continue. It's been a long time since we had studied Gita. 2 weekends in a row, we could not study. We have been studying this portion, verses sloka number 7 to 11 in the 13th chapter, which deals with self-knowledge, jnanam. Generally in the scriptures, Gita Upanishad, jnanam, knowledge means self-knowledge, not worldly knowledge. Aparavidya, this is paravidya. What we are studying is paravidya, knowledge of God, knowledge of the self. So now we have to study verse number 11, the last one in that segment. Adhyatmajnananityatvam tattvajnanarthadarshanam etadjnanamiti proktam ajnanam yadatonyatha. Concluding this portion, what is jnanam? Self-knowledge. 19th one, we'll go through the whole list later, after we conclude this. Last but one, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. The word Adhyatma has come before in chapter 8. Adi means within oneself. Atman, presence of God. Knowledge of the divine presence within us. That knowledge is called Adhyatma Jnana, knowledge of God within us. God is everywhere, but His presence is more specifically, more vividly experienced in one's own self than in all others too. So we have to go by stages. First of all, meditate. That's why when the Guru gives us a mantra, he says, meditate in your heart. That is where the Lord is sitting. Hridaya Kamala Madhye Rajitam Nirvikalpam, like that Jnana Shloka. So Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. Nitya means always, every day, all the time. Nityatvam, all the time thinking about God's presence in our heart, within us. Heart means not one particular point physical body all over, everywhere, within and without. Unfailing cultivation of spiritual knowledge, nityatvam, all the time, keeping our mind attuned with the divine presence within us, and then within everybody else also, gradually. In everyone and everything, objects, animals, plants, inanimate objects also, we have to see the presence of God. Because as Sri Ramakrishna himself says in many places in the Gospel, the Divine Mother herself has become the whole universe. And the 24 cosmic principles, which we studied in the earlier shloka in this chapter. Everything, whatever we see, is God himself, but appearing as the universe of names and forms, because we are seeing through the mind and the sense organs. The sense organs are not really 100% efficient in conveying data, information to the mind. We are prejudiced, we see everything in the way we like to see them. Those are different topics. So there's not very accurate information. We see somebody, a new person for the first time, he gets an impression. But later on, we discover he's not what I thought he was. He's something else. Because our mind and sense organs are not 100% accurate in their perception. So we cannot see divine presence within us. But it will be possible to see God, really, for everyone. How? By purifying the mind and focusing attention 100% on God within. Not wasting our mental energy looking at outside world, other people, what they are doing, what they are wearing, what they are eating, not our concern. That's how our energy, time is wasted by looking at the world, everything. So that is Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam, unfailing cultivation of spiritual knowledge. Adhyatma Jnana means spiritual knowledge. In the commentary on this sloka, Shankaracharya says, Atmadi Vishayam Jnanam Adhyatma Jnanam. Adhyatma Jnana means knowledge of Atman. Atman is used in the Upanishad. In Puranas and Gita, we use God, Ishvara, Parameshvara, our chosen ideal, our Ishtadevata. It's present within us. Atmadi Vishayam Jnanam Adhyatma Jnanam Tasmin Nitya Bhavaha Nityatvam. Nitya Bhava means always focusing our attention on the presence of God within us, first of all. Not wasting our mental energy, time, and resources in looking at the world, what everybody is doing, what's happening. Should not waste time over those things. Spiritual knowledge is knowledge of the self. Constantly cultivating spiritual knowledge. This involves practicing constant awareness of our divine nature, or constantly thinking about our Ishtadevata, repeating the mantra mentally whenever possible. When you have to focus attention on the work, you do that one. Then we should not be distracted. Full attention you pay to the work you are doing, whatever work you are doing. But as soon as the work is finished, before you go to the next job, next task, a few seconds, remind yourself of the mantra. Then you go to the next task. Before you begin the task, after finishing the task, remember God. If not during the work, we should not. We should put full attention on the work we are doing, because that is worship of God. This involves practicing constant awareness of our divine nature, of the divine presence within us, Adhyatma, and in all beings and everything. Most of the times, our thoughts are about worldly matters. Generally speaking, there are exceptions. Most of the times, our thoughts are on worldly matters and worldly concerns. Earlier in this chapter, we studied one shloka from the Viveka Chudamani. I made a reference to that one. That is shloka number Those of you who studied Vivekananda-Swamiji, you might remember sloka number 270, 271. There Shankaracharya talks about three kinds of distractions. All of us are prone to that one. Three kinds of distractions drag our mind away from God to in other directions. What are they? First one is called Loka Anuvartanam. Loka Anuvartanam. Loka means the world. Loka also means people. In Hindi, it becomes log. It is Loka. Also means world. Loka Anuvartanam. Preoccupation with worldly matters, such as job. Job takes a lot of time. These days, there is no working hours. In my time, when I was employed, it was 9 to 5. When I went home at 5 o'clock, next morning until 9 o'clock, I didn't think about job at all. But now it's not like that. The 24 hours, the phone is ringing, cell phone is ringing, some meeting is going on. In Japan, you have to attend like midnight here. So that takes a lot of time. And people have to have a job. Otherwise, how will they maintain the family? It's difficult. So preoccupation with worldly matters such as job, property, money, and health problems of family members, children become sick, other people become sick, social engagements, vacation planning, all these things, sports, politics, a lot of things to talk about. So that is all Loka. All the much of it can be reduced or modified. That is Loka, big distraction. Some of it you can't escape. You have to do that. But you have to have a job. You have to have a family. So that takes a lot of time. Loka. Second distraction is Deha. This sloka number 270, 271 in Vivekananda, if you are interested. Deha means preoccupation with the body. What food to eat. Food takes so much major portion of our thought, energy, and resources. Huge amount of time and resources are spent about food, what to eat and the recipe and which restaurant and all those things. Deha concerns about the body. Deha includes Sukshma Sharira, Sukshma Deha, mind. Our thoughts, our wishes, our emotions, anger, jealousy, desire, etc. All of them occupy a good portion of our time. Dress and other matters, car, insurance, all those things come. Some of it cannot be completely avoided. We have to deal with those things, necessary. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna said several times, Kali Yuge Annagata Prana. In the Kali Yuga, the human life depends upon Anna means food. Food means 5 kinds of food, as you saw before, not just what we eat. Everything we see is food. Everything we hear is food to the mind. Everything we touch is food because it conveys impressions to the mind. Everything we hear, touch, smell, and taste. 5 kinds of food we eat. So that takes a lot of time. That is Deha, sleep, rest, exercise, relaxation, everything. The third distraction is something that keeps away from God, away from thinking about God. Third one is Shastra Anuvartanam. It's not very common, but some people do too much of scripture study for scholarship. Scripture has to be studied, necessary as spiritual practice. Upanishad says, Swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na pramaditavyam. Swadhyaya has to be done to some extent, but that's not the main thing. Swadhyaya is not the end. It's not the goal. It's the means. Swadhyaya means scripture study has to be done to some extent to understand what is the goal of life and how to achieve it. That's all scriptures do. So many thousands of scriptures are there even in Vedanta, not to speak of other subjects. So how much can you study? How much should we study? Not very much, just the basic things. And very few people, some small number of people never studied any scriptures. Can you tell one person who didn't study any scripture?
Vivekananda.
Oh, he studied a lot of scriptures.
Ramakrishna.
Ramakrishna.
Latu Maharaj.
People didn't study any scripture.
Latu Maharaj.
Latu Maharaj.
Latu Maharaj. Latu Maharaj. He was illiterate. But he became a Jnani Bhakta, both. He had pure devotion, knowledge, everything, by the grace of Guru. So we can't be like that. We have to study some book. It's not, I'm not giving it as an example for all of us, but it's possible for some people to know God, have devotion and knowledge without scriptures. But that's not our model. We can't be like Latu Maharaj. We have to study some scriptures. So scripture study to some extent, to know the essence. More important is, after studying scriptures, we have to put the instructions into practice. If you simply keep on reading books and memorizing all these things without doing anything, that won't be useful. That is why in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, it's a very nice scripture, very nice book, Narada Bhakti Sutra. Narada himself wrote 84 sutras, aphorisms on Bhakti. You will study that sometime. There, Narada Maharshi says, we have to study the scriptures, but that's not enough. We have to put into practice what the scriptures ask us to do. That's the purpose. Otherwise, simply reading is of not much use. Scriptures are like recipe books. You have to read the recipe before you prepare some dish. And then if you keep on reading and not doing anything, there is no dish. You become expert in recipe recitation. That won't be useful. So we have to read this recipe to know what to do, how to do, what ingredients to get, etc. And then you put the recipe and then do the instructions, follow the instructions, acquire the ingredients and follow the steps given in the recipe. Then we have some food. So scriptures are like that. Tell us what to do and how to reach the goal of God realization. So in the Narada Bhakti Sutra, Narada Maharshi says, because he was teaching Bhakti, so he says, Bhakti Shastrani Manani Yani. Bhakti Shastra means devotional scriptures. People can study in Jnana Yoga also, but Narada was a teacher of Bhakti, so he emphasized Bhakti. Bhakti Shastrani Manani Yani. Note the word Manani Yani. Manana means reflection, deep thinking, not just reading. Pataniyani means to read. But after reading, we have to reflect on what we study. That's when we understand the deeper meaning. Listening to somebody or reading in a book is the first step. That will not give us complete understanding. It will give us some, to some extent, introduce the topic. But you have to follow that reading or listening by reflection. When you go home after the class, you have to sit down and remember what we studied and go back to the book and read the commentary and word by word meaning, everything. Then slowly, if you do it repeatedly, not once, Manana has to be done repeatedly. Then slowly the deeper meaning will come within. It's already within us. The teacher is not going to give new knowledge to you. The teacher only makes it possible for us, the students, to create an environment in our mind so that knowledge which is hidden within us will come to the surface. You realize, oh, this is the truth. So that has to be done. Bhakti Shastrani Manani Yani. Then he says, in the same sutra, Narada Maharshi says, Tadudbodhaka Karmani Karani Yani. Very important line. That means he is talking about pure devotion. Narada talks about pure devotion. Shuddha Prema. Shuddha Bhakti Prema. Tadudbodhaka Karmani. Whatever karma, that means actions, spiritual practices, will increase our devotion. Udbodhaka means enhance it, deeper devotion. Those actions have to be done. That means you have to put into practice the instructions given in the scriptures. Not reading is not enough. That's the first step, has to be done. Scripture study is important, but it should not overshadow our other spiritual practices. To study, but not simply studying all the time is of not much use, not very productive. Should then be reasonable amount of study has to be done selectively. What book to study? Hundred books, thousands of books are there, not hundreds. How much can we study in one lifetime? Not possible, not necessary. Selectively. The teacher will help us which book we should study. Same book may not be good for everybody, because depending upon our path we have chosen, our temperament, our ability, our interest, depending on that, teacher will guide us which book to study. So, constantly remembering the divine presence within us. We are still doing Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam, last but one. If you forget to remember God, even for a short time, a devotee becomes very remorseful. Constantly thinking about God becomes a habit, habitually. Then we forget for 5 minutes. For a minute, 5 minutes we watch TV or listen to something or some conversation or something. Then we remember, oh, for 5 minutes I didn't think about God at all. Such a waste of time. Every moment is precious. We don't have unlimited time. Our time is limited in this world. Every moment we have to utilize in the best possible way by thinking about God. Narada Maharshi says that also. In the Bhakti Sutra, he says, Kshanardhamapi vyartham namayet. Kshanardham means half a moment. Yartham means futile use of waste of time. We should not waste even half a moment in unnecessary thinking and talking about unnecessary things. Every moment is precious. Once a moment is gone, it will never come back in our lifetime. Just one moment is lost, one day lost is lost forever. And the days are diminishing. Every day we have less and less time available. It looks like very pessimistic view, but is that not the truth? It's exhausting. The clock is ticking. So that's why Sarada Devi said, she gave a nice example. In her cottage, there was a alarm clock. It used to make, now those days the electronic clocks were not there. They used to make mechanical. They used to make ticking sound, tick, 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 like that one. And she told a devotee, Holy-Mother Sarada Devi told a devotee this, see, look at the clock. Every moment it is ticking. Every moment it is ticking. In the same way, just like the clock ticks every moment our mind must repeat God's name without wasting even one moment. The clock does not stop. So that's the example Holy Mother gave. So forgetfulness of God's presence within us is a big blunder. In the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have heard about Sri Krishna Chaitanya. He lived in the 15th century. He composed a very nice stotra hymn. It's called, what is it called? Shikshashtakam. Shikshashtakam. You heard about it before. It will come again. In Shikshashtakam, there are 8 stanzas. Ashtaka means 8 stanzas in that hymn. There, one stanza deals with this topic. How a devotee should constantly strive to remember God without wasting even one moment on unnecessary activities, unnecessary thoughts, useless thought. So this sloka is like this. Yugayitam nimeshena chakshusha pravrushayitam shunyayitam jagat sarvam Govinda virahena me. Govinda means Lord, Vishnu, Krishna, whatever your chosen ideal. Govinda viraha means separation. If you are separated in your mind, if you don't think about God, our chosen ideal, Ishtadevata, even for a short moment, nimesha. Nimesha means the time it takes to twinkle the eyes, Once, the twinkling of an eye. Nimesha means such a short time. Yugayitam nimeshena. Even if you forget to remember God for the duration of a twinkling of an eye, such a short time. For a devotee, it looks like a long time. Yugayitam, like a yuga. How much time I have wasted? I wasted 5 seconds, but for a devotee, it looks like a long time. How precious 5 seconds I wasted in my life. Like that, he feels remorse, he or she feels remorse. The devotee becomes remorseful when he or she fails to remember God even for a short time. Then what else happens to the devotee? If he or she forgets to remember God, chakshusha pravarsayitam. Chakshu means eyes. Varsha means rain. Chakshusha pravarsayitam, monsoon has said. Heavy rain, when it pours so much water, a torrential flow of water. In the same way, the eyes of the devotee become, because of so much sorrow and remorse, the devotee begins to cry with copious tears flowing from the eyes. How unfortunate, foolish of me to have forgotten God for 1 minute. I could have used that minute to think about God. I thought about something else, talked about something else. That remorse will come. Yugayitam nimeshena chakshusha pravasayitam shunyayitam jagat sarvam. Jagat means whole universe is there, everything is there, family is there, children are there, spouse is there, father, mother, children, job, money, house, everything is there. But God is not there in my mind. World looks empty. Shunya means emptiness. Whole world looks empty, feels empty without God. Everything acquires meaning because of the presence of God. Sri Ramakrishna explained this, how everything in life becomes meaningful if God is there. The thought of God is there in our mind. He gives a nice example. On a board, if you write 0, is 0, no value. You put another 0, 2 zeros also same. 2 zeros are 10 zeros, 0 is 0. But if you put a 1 behind the first 0, 1 0 becomes 10, 2 zeros plus 1 becomes 100. It's the one that gives meaning to the zeros. Without the 1, zeros have no meaning, no value. It's God's thought in our mind that makes everything else life meaningful. All our actions become meaningful. All our thoughts become meaningful if we keep the thought of God in our mind. That should never be forgotten. That's why Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam, Sri Krishna says in the Gita, constantly being aware of God's presence within us and within everybody. Then you go to the next sloka, next instruction. Okay, let me add one more sentence. Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. Here, it looks like emphasis is on the Jnana Yoga, Adhyatma Jnana, presence of Atman within us. I am Atman, I am Brahman, like that one. It's not possible or easy for everybody. It's easier to remember personal God within us. If you are devotees of Sri Rama, imagine Rama is present in your heart, in the lotus of your heart. If you are devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, visualize Sri Ramakrishna sitting in the lotus of our heart. That's easier, personal God, to remind ourselves his or her presence in our heart. If we find this practice of constant absorption on the self, Atman or Brahman, difficult, we can practice constant recollection of our chosen ideal, personal God. This can be achieved by practicing constant repetition of God's name or mantra. So it comes down to mantra repetition, japa. Constantly, mentally repeating our mantra moment by moment, that alone will take us to God. To do that, you don't have to go to a Himalayas or some cave or some other place. You don't have to change your dress. You don't have to know Sanskrit. You don't have to do anything. just with the simplicity, faith of a child, repeat God's name all the time. That's all the gist of spiritual practice, if you ask me. The other practices, complicated practices are there, meditation, all those things, but this is simplest and most effective method, practice, which everybody can do. Does not require any special ability or no special requirement to requisite. So that is Adhyatma Jnana Nityatva. Now we got the last instruction. This is in shloka number 11, 13th chapter. Last instruction is Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. Tattva Jnana is knowledge of truth. Tattva means that. Tat means that. That means Brahman. Tattva Jnana means knowledge of Brahman. Atma Jnana, Brahma Jnana. Tattva Jnana Artha Darshanam. What is the Artha means goal or object? What is the object of this knowledge that he has been listing since shloka number 7? 20 different things are listed. What is the object, purpose? God. Purpose is Brahman or God. For Jnanis it is Brahman. For devotees it is God, our chosen ideal, personal God. Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. Constantly contemplating on the goal of self-knowledge, which is, what is the goal of self-knowledge? Liberation, moksha. Moksha means freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from all suffering of all types permanently. The worldly measures give us freedom from suffering for a short time. The new suffering will come, new problem will come. You solve one problem, next problem is already there, waiting. But when we get self-knowledge or pure devotion, Bhakti, Bhakti, permanent cessation of all suffering of all kinds forever. That means no rebirth. Suffering due to Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, all those things came earlier in this. Disease and suffering, poverty, bodily problem, mental problem, financial problem, all kinds of problems people go through. We know that one. All that will permanently stop, not even rebirth. You reach God. At the end of this birth, when we die, we reach God and we are with Him permanently, with our chosen ideal permanently. No more coming back to this world of suffering. This world is called a place of suffering. Who says that one? The Lord Himself. In chapter 8 and chapter 8 verse number 15 and chapter 9 verse number 30. There Bhagavan Sri Krishna Himself, the Lord of the universe, He Himself is saying that this world is joyless. He says, Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. These are His words in the Gita, 8th and 9th chapter. Dukkhalayam, Alayam means house, Alayam. Dukkhalayam means house of misery, Dukkha. Who says? The Lord Himself says. And we are trying to find happiness there. When He Himself says there is no happiness, we won't be successful in finding true happiness. Some pleasure will come every now and then. Family, job, money will bring some pleasure, but that's not permanent. It brings a lot of pain also at the end. Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. And then He says, Anityam Asukam Lokam. This loka, this world is Anitya. Anitya means temporary. Nitya means permanent. All the time. Anitya means this, everything is changing, coming and going. As we know from experience, nothing is permanent. Today you are happy, but there is no guarantee tomorrow will be happy. In a moment, things will change. It doesn't take much time for things to change. One moment. Things may change gradually also. Nothing is permanent. So Dukkhalayam Anityam Asukam. Asukam means no sukha. The Lord Himself is saying all that unhappiness, misery, suffering that is inevitable in human birth will permanently, completely, totally stop. Instead, what we will experience? Ananda. The joy of knowing God. Nothing can surpass that one. There is no greater joy than knowing God. No amount of money, power, fame, position, youth, beauty, nothing will come anywhere close to the joy that one experiences when we reach God, when you know God. Infinite joy, ananta. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma, like this Upanishad says. So tattva jnanartha darshanam. For those who are still in the enjoyment mode, everybody is not interested in liberation right now. We have that as a goal, distant goal. Right now, there's not that much pressure within us to know liberation today. There's that urgency, Vyakulata is not there intensely for everybody all the time. Some people are still in the enjoyment mode. They are young people, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. They have a good job and a family and success and fame, car and everything. They are enjoying. They are enjoying because they did good karma. They are not bad people. They are going through good times in life. That's okay. That's one part of life. As long as we are engaged in enjoyment, bhoga, so long it is difficult for our mind to think about God because all these things are much more attractive. But a time will come in everybody's life. In everybody's life, a time will come when this enjoyment mode will stop. A little bit advanced age, body problems, health problems, family problems, children problems, when they one by one they will start, then our bhoga becomes less and less enjoyment, more and more problem. Sri Ramakrishna calls it bhoganta. Bhogante, that means when the enjoyment mode becomes less and less, problems begin to appear in our life, then we think about God. Until then, we don't have that much time or interest or energy to, no time to think about God. Other priorities are there, job and family, money and wealth. But once that bhoganta period comes, end of suffering, end of enjoyment, beginning of suffering comes, as it will in everybody's life. Sooner or later, for some it comes sooner, for some it comes later. It will come. Bhoganta will come. Bhoganta means end of suffering mode. End of enjoyment mode will happen. Then we think about God. Then realize all these years I wasted, all these worldly matters. I should have thought about God every day, at least for an hour, but I didn't have the inclination. That realization will come. We should not allow that to happen. So for those who have had it, they have experienced everything, good and bad. They know what is family life, what is success, money is. They have known it. They have had it enough. When they reach the stage, I have had it enough. When the stage comes, then the liberation, God, they make sense. Then we turn our attention. No, this is not the goal of life. All these things will end. The goal of life is to know God and reach God and become one with God, devotees of God. That is the goal of life. That knowledge will come a little bit, not immediately, but takes time. For some people, it comes very early in life. Very young people, they renounce and join the ashrama. Even before underage, they want to join the ashrama. Some young students, those are very rare. But there are some people, early in life, they get renunciation, realization. This world is not worth. This is not our true abode. Our true abode is God. That realization comes to very few people early. As you grow older, gradually it comes. This world is not really what it appears to be. There's a higher place. There's a higher goal. God is the goal. You have to strive to know God. That is Tattva Jnana Artha Darshanam. The realization that this world is not the goal, it's not our true place. We are here as strangers. This world is like a traveler's inn. You are staying here for the short duration during a journey to God. It's not your permanent place. That realization will come in course of time. To everybody, it will come at different times. Contemplating on the goal of liberation will come gradually. Just explained in the Mundaka Upanishad. When does realization come that God is the goal, world is not the goal? Worldly experience is necessary. People have to go through some experience, pain and pleasure. Then realization will come, oh, this is not the true life. Goal of life is not this money or power or wealth or enjoyment. They will all go away. They won't give us pure joy. God is the goal of life. For that realization to come to us, it takes time. For some soon, for some later. When that comes, then we think about goal of life, liberation. We think about God. That is Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. For those who have had it, who are no longer interested in worldly life and long for liberation, contemplating on the goal of liberation is recommended. That's then we should think about God, not wasting any more time on worldly matters. Enough time has been wasted, precious time. Now hereafter, I'm not going to waste any time at all pursuing worldly matters and pleasures and enjoyment and entertainment and movies and money. And then enough. I've seen it, I've done there, I've been there. That's hereafter only God. That stage, we should be in that state. We are all in that state to some extent. Otherwise, we will not be studying Gita on Sunday afternoon. God's grace, and God has drawn us towards Him already. So we have considered ourselves very fortunate in a humble way. The liberation or moksha, which is the result of self-knowledge, tattva jnana. Artha means goal. Tattva jnana artha means the goal of liberation, the goal of self-knowledge, tattva jnana. One should constantly ask oneself, what is the ultimate goal of life? Where am I headed? One day, sooner or later, death will come. Then what happens? So we don't know. It's a blank. So we have to think about the goal of life. When we are still able to think and do something about it. It cannot be enjoyment or worldly pleasures. Yeah, worldly pleasure cannot be the goal of life because a stage will come and we can't enjoy. Even if things are there, money is there, food is there, clothes is there, car is there, but I can't use any of them. Body becomes unable, mind becomes unable to enjoy. So that stage will come. Before that comes, we should think about the goal of life. Tattva jnana artha darshanam. Then, so the last instruction in this segment of the Gita, 13th chapter is, last instruction is for seekers of God to constantly dwell on the fruit of self-knowledge, tattva jnana artha, which is moksha or liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Rebirth means more suffering. Repetition of the same pattern, whatever happened in this life will happen next life. Little bit change in the detail, that is all. Same process. So many times we have gone through this one. Nowadays in our Vedanta center here, we read one book before dinner, after meditation. We read one book in the morning after breakfast, that is Gospel, always. In Bengal, in English, everybody, all of us, whoever is there, will gather together after breakfast. After meditation, before dinner, at night, we also read another book. The book we are reading at night is called Go Forward. That is all the letters written by Swami Brahmarupananda ji Maharaj, disciple of Holy Mother. And in those letters, Swamiji has said this one. Constantly, we should dwell on the shortness, limited time available to us in this life, and the best possible use of our time, limited time. Time is diminishing. You should not waste even one moment in unnecessary talk, conversation, and unnecessary things. Moksha or liberation is the goal of life, liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Dear Premeshanji Maharaj has said in a letter, in one of his letters, we have gone through life so many times, we don't remember. Fortunately, we don't remember. There is to be a big problem if we remember what happened in the previous life. So God has mercifully erased that from our memory. So many hundreds of times or thousands of times, Premeshanji says in his letters, we are all taken birth. It's not the first time we are taken birth as human beings. And if you don't do anything about it, it will continue to take birth and suffer the same way. We have to put an end to that cycle of birth and death. That's called this cycle of transmigration, migrating from one body to another body. That should not be allowed to continue. We should reach God. When you reach God, then you are safe permanently at His feet. That nothing can give us greater happiness than being with God. Serving as a servant, kainkaryam they call in Sanskrit. So that is the goal of life. Constantly thinking about the supreme goal of life, which is liberation, knowing God, reaching God, in whatever way we want to think about that one. So that is the end of the segment instruction. Verse number 11. Adhyatma jnana nityatvam tattva jnanartha darshanam etat jnanamiti proktam ajnanam yadatonyatha. All of these 20 things, starting from verse number 11 and verse number 7 until end of verse number 11, these things are called etat jnanam iti proktam. It's called knowledge. These are actually disciplines that give us knowledge. Beginning from amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, kshantirarjavam, which began from there. These are all practices, disciplines, virtue that we have to practice. If you practice this, we get self-knowledge. If you practice this, at least some of these, not all of this is difficult for most of us. 4, 5, 2, 3, whatever, we can start with 2 or 3. That we can practice right now. Easiest ones. Then gradually others will come. If you do this one, what is the goal of this knowledge? Goal of this discipline, practice? Self-knowledge. Atma-jnana or pure devotion. Both of them will come. Sri Ramakrishna has said in the Gospel that a devotee is not seeking self-knowledge. He himself said at one point, Brahma-jnana. He told Divine Mother, excuse me, Sri Ramakrishna told Divine Mother, "Oh Mother, I don't want Brahma-jnana. Give it to those who are seeking. What do I want? I want only pure devotion to you. I want to be like a 5-year-old child on your lap, resting on your lap. Tattva, Brahma-jnana, all those things, give it to those who are seeking." Same thing Narada also said. When Vishnu asked Narada, "What do you like to have?" Ask for a boon. Narada said, "Give me pure devotion." Not self-knowledge, a Brahma-jnana. Same thing Hanuman said. Hanuman said, when Rama asked Hanuman, "What do you like to have?" Excuse me. Hanuman could have asked for anything, liberation, moksha, whatever. He says, "I don't want any of those things. I just want to be able to remember you, and I want to be present as Hanuman wherever, whenever people take your name." That's all Hanuman wanted, not even liberation. So bhakti is superior to moksha. According to devotees, devotion is greater than liberation. They don't want liberation, but they want devotion. That is very high, higher goal, highest goal. But if you have devotion, Divine Mother will give us jnana also. Thus Sri Ramakrishna said in the Gospel, if you achieve pure devotion, you will also get pure knowledge, self-knowledge. So that is the goal. Concentrating on that goal is the discipline. Etad jnanamiti proktam ataha anyatha. Other than this, other than amanitvam, adambitvam, humility, lack of pride, ostentatious, and truthfulness, all those things, other opposite to these things, ahimsa, etc., that's all ajnana. What is listed here is all jnana, knowledge or means of knowledge, self-knowledge. Anything opposed to this is ajnanam, ignorance. We should not pursue that one. That is the conclusion of this section. Jnanam iti proktam tadato ajnanam yadato anyatha. So let us study this segment 7 to 11 repeatedly. We have studied once, but in your own time, please read this 5 shlokas 7 to 11 many times, then what happens is this idea will stick in our mind, ideas will stick in our mind, and we will be tempted to, we will be compelled to practice at least some of these 20 disciplines. Even 1, 2, 3, if we do, so you're all doing, all of you are doing at least a few of them already, I know. That's why you are here studying the Bhagavad Gita. You are all engaged in that effort in achieving the goal of God realization. You are all there. But you have to do it consciously and more diligently without wasting time. So let us conclude that section. Now, next section from 12 to 18, that is ji.He. What is the goal of knowledge? God is the goal of knowledge. Here it says Brahman or God. Personal God, impersonal God, does not matter. That is the goal of knowledge. What is to be known? God is to be known. Knowing other things, worldly things, is of limited use. Knowing physics, chemistry, geography, biology, all those things, it is necessary for a livelihood to some extent, but that's not the goal of life. The subject itself changes, and our knowledge also will fade away with age. It is necessary for life. That is aparavidya. But more important in aparavidya is this knowledge, ji.He, which is God. ji.He means one is to be known. What is to be known? God. So description of Brahman or personal God will come in the 7 verses 12 to 18. That segment will start now, will continue in subsequent weeks. So let me let me chant verse number 12. Jneyam yattat pravakshyami yajñātva amritamashnute anādimat param brahma nasattanna saduchyate. This is this verse sounds like a puzzle, but let's try to understand slowly. Jneyam yattat pravakshyami yajñātva amritamashnute anādimat param brahma nasattanna asaduchyate. Na sat tat na asad uchyate. Different words combined together. So here it's Bhagavan says, I shall now narrate what is to be known, the knowable, by knowing which one attains immortality. What's the use of this knowledge? We become immortal. Other sciences and sociology, geography and chemistry, astrophysics, they will not give us immortality. They will give us worldly benefits, but they will not do anything to our inner life. They are necessary, but not sufficient. Here, this knowledge, what Sri Krishna is talking about, Bhagavan is talking about, it grants amritamashnute. Amritatva means immortality. Not in a physical sense. Body will not be immortal. It's matter. This body is matter. It is going to degenerate and stop functioning sooner or later. That's not immortality. Immortality in our inner self. We become associated, united with God, which is immortal. Union with God makes us immortal because God is immortal. The world is not immortal. The world will change, will go away. So that is the benefit of this knowledge. What's the benefit of this knowledge? Sri Krishna is mentioning this in order to give us motivation to study this knowledge. Immortality. Amritattvam ashnute. A person will enjoy immortality by knowing what? ji.He, which is Brahman, Parabrahma, Supreme Brahman. Param Brahma, you see in the second line, Anadimat Param Brahma, Supreme Brahman, Supreme Reality, God. In any way we want to think about, we can think about God. There's only one reality, many different names and forms. Some people think of God as Rama, some as Krishna, some as Durga, some as Shiva. Is our choice. No matter how you think about God, one aspect of God, it is still the same reality. So there is no quibble, argument about which form is better, there is no such argument. All aspects of God are aspects of the same one God. Only one God is there. You can think about God in any way we like. That freedom we have in our tradition. You don't say this is the only way to think about God. Anadimat Nyayam etat pravakshami yat jnatva, by knowing which Amritamashnote, a person becomes immortal. Now, what is that Parabrahman? Here, the second line, you have to pay attention to this one. Anadimat. Anadi means without beginning. For everything in the world, there is a beginning. Even this earth also began at some point in time. And this universe also began at some point in time. Scientists say 13.8 billion years ago, this world, this universe was formed. We don't know for certain. It's the best estimate scientists can come up with, because there was nobody there at that time to start the stop clock. Universe began now, then 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes and second, not like that. It is just the best estimate scientists can come up with. So that means it had a beginning at some point, this universe. But God has no beginning. Anadimat, Param Brahma, Supreme Reality Brahman, Param Brahman, Parameshwara also, no beginning, Anadimat. And then, Na Sat. It is, Sat means that which exists. Na Sat means it is not something that exists. Parabrahman is being described here in these verses. Na Asat is not non-existent. It is neither existent nor non-existent. Na Asat Uchate. It is said to be neither existent nor non-existent. How can that be both opposite qualities? In our thinking, either something exists or does not exist. There is no third possibility. Something is or something is not. How can it be neither or both? That is the description, best description we can come up with about ultimate reality Brahman. Because Sat means something that is present, that is describable. Supposing there is a cow standing here, so we visualize, for example. So we can describe it. We can say cow is standing. I'm saying it. Now, when we say that when cow is here, this is a cow, then we are limiting it to that one particular object. So we are eliminating everything that is not a cow. It is not another animal like an elephant or cat or a dog. It's not a bird. It's a cow. Eliminating all other things which are not cows in the same category, animal category. Then other categories are all eliminated. It's not a human being. It's not a mountain. It's not a river. It's not the sun. Cow. Limiting it. That's what you can say about any object. But we cannot say that about Brahman, because it is infinite. Everything, Brahman. So we cannot limit it to one description like it is. Then you are limiting it by mentioning a quality. Na Asat, we cannot say it is not present, because we don't say everything we say is Brahman itself. In the form of beings, name and form beings, Vyakta, God is present, we can see with our sense organs. All other human beings in whom God is present, we can see. But without the name and form, God is present that we cannot see. God is both with form and without form. Sri Ramakrishna mentioned it several times. God with form is as true as God without form. That was the first instruction. Among the first instruction he gave to M in their second meeting. So M was objecting to idol worship. People worship God in the form of images, photographs and pictures and Shivalinga and Saligrama, all those things, and the images of Rama, Krishna, all those things. So M was saying God is formless. Sri Ramakrishna said, corrected him. So God is with form, without form. You cannot limit it to any one thing. So unlimited. God is unlimited. So this is all that follows from verse number 12 to 18. All description of God or Brahman. Description of Brahman, formless reality. God with form can be described to some extent. It has qualities. For example, Rama can be said, oh, Rama is a compassionate God. He has mercy. He saves, protects the devotee. Like this, some quality can be given. For God with form. But God without form, Brahman, you can't say anything. Nothing can be said to specify Brahman, unspecifiable, anirideshyam. All of that will come in the next 4 or 5 verses. Then, that means what Brahman is cannot be described in words. Conclusion of verse number 12 is what Brahman is cannot be described in words. It's beyond the ability of the mind and speech to capture it. Mind cannot think about Brahman as this, and this. Object can be thought about. You can think about any object in mind. It has qualities. But we can't think about Brahman accurately, what it is. Because it is infinite, eternal, pure consciousness. Satyam Jnana Manantam Brahma. Can be thought about clearly. Speech also cannot describe it. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a very nice passage in the 2nd chapter, Taittiriya Upanishad. There, the Rishi says, both the mind, human mind, and the human speech, they both went to capture, to know God. Both of them failed in their mission. Mind failed to think about God. Speech failed to express God in words, came back unsuccessful in their mission. Nice passage. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Manasa saha, along with the mind, vachaha, speech. Nivartante, they both came back unsuccessful in their mission to know Brahman, beyond mind and speech. That is why it is explained in this way. It's neither existent nor non-existent. It's neither has form nor does it not have form. Both opposite qualities. This will continue in the next 4 verses. We'll resume it next time when we meet. Until then, all of you stay well. And if you have any questions, you can ask me now or after I say the closing prayer, or you can send me email. I will see what can be done. So closing prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all be happy. May all be free from diseases and other problems. May all realize and practice what is noble and dharmic. May no one be subject to any kind of suffering or misery. Om peace, may there be peace, Adhyatmika Shanti within us. May there be peace among all the beings, Adi Bhavatika Shanti. May there be peace everywhere in nature, Adi Daivika Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Now, if you have questions or any comments to make.
Pranam Swamiji. I was wondering, some of my other satsangis, they were saying concerned the voice of consciousness and soul. The voice of consciousness comes from our soul and Atma. And is that the consciousness? And I think in the Western world, they call it consciousness, Atma and soul. So are they different or same? Could you explain that, please?
It can be our ego. Sometimes we hear as our inner voice. We call it conscience. Conscience means our inner sense of what is right, what is wrong, that speaks to us. When I'm doing something, my mind says, no, that's not right. You should not do that one. That's our inner voice. That's our mind. But consciousness, Atman, is beyond that one. That's our true nature, Atman. But mind itself has a faculty which is called Buddhi, which guides us as our inner voice. It tells our conscience. We call it our conscience. He's doing such a cruel thing. Does he not have any conscience? Like this, we talk about other people. That is our own mind, our higher mind, which is our buddhi, which tells us this is right, this is wrong. Don't do this one. Do this one instead. That's our own faculty, mental faculty. That
But
can be
can't-
modified. It can be sattvic. It can be rajasic and tamasic also. We'll study that in 17th, 18th chapter. But the buddhi is made sattvic by pure thinking, devotion, knowledge. It will guide us in the proper direction.
Right. If the buddhi tells us, or the consciousness, the voice tells us something, but it is harming to us and others, then it is not the voice from our Atman, but it is from our mind.
Atman is a witness. Sakshi, it's the mind, in our higher mind, that tells us this is right, this is. That's called Viveka. Buddhi has Viveka. Discriminating faculty, right and wrong. This function of the mind, it can be cultivated to be sattvic buddhi. Then it guides us in the proper way.
Right.
For evil people, their mind guides them in the wrong way. What is wrong, they do it. That their mind is not pure. Their mind, their buddhi is misleading them, the tamasic buddhi. But that can be changed. So our mind tells us, don't waste time, do study Gita, think about God, do japa, repeat God's name. That's what our mind is telling us. That is sattvic buddhi. Atman is witness sakshi. It does not say do or do anything. It's sakshi, it's pure consciousness. Because of its presence, all this mind, everything is functioning.
So if the Atman is just a sakshi, but it does give the vitality, the consciousness to all the cells in our body to make it sentient, right?
The presence of Atman makes it possible for all the body, mind, sense organs to function. Not only body, mind, even the sun and moon and whole nature to function, God's presence. Sun shines because of Atman's present, God is present. Moon shine, that will come in the 15th chapter. Second and 7th chapter. Prabha Smishashi Surya Yo. The effulgence, Prabha means effulgence of Shashi means moon and Surya sun. Ahamasmi, I am that consciousness, I am that power behind the sun, which makes it shine, moon which makes it like that. Is God's presence enough? It's not actually do anything itself. He's simply there. His very presence enables the whole universe to function.
But that's Paramatma, right? And our Atma gives the sentientness to the body matter. Otherwise, it's insentient.
Yeah, matter cannot function without presence of God's power.
Okay, I think I understand. Consciousness is the function of buddhi. It can be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic.
Buddhi can be sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, right? And it can be cultivated. We can make our buddhi purely sattvic.
Right. Okay. Understand.
Then it will guide us in the right direction. Not we don't take a wrong step.
Right.
But if buddhi is tamasic, it will take us in wrong direction. They do things which are not supposed to be done. You see that in the news all the time.
Right.
That buddhi they have buddhi, but it is not cultivated. It's tamasic buddhi, ignorant. So what to do? Suffering will come.
Right. Thank you.
How can you purify the buddhi? By prayer, japa, meditation, study of scriptures, thinking pure thoughts, all the
prayer to God. Yeah, prayers to God. Yeah.
Prayer.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Swami.
Anything else?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Abraham, Bettima, Namaskaram.
Namaskaram, Swamiji.
Namaskara, Tunga Didi. Sundarvalli.
Thank you,
Our
Maharaj.
chanting is very good.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj.
Adnaji, you can
Thank you,
unmute yourself
Swamiji.
and ask the question.
Can I ask you something? Swamiji?
Namaskar, Swamiji.
Namaskar, Bachu Bhai.
Namaskar, Swamiji.
Padma, you have a question you can ask.
Yeah.
Anybody has a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Namaskar, Swamiji. This might be a little. So,
Take your time.
if
You muted yourself, Padmaji.
oh, sorry, I unmuted now. Yeah.
Okay.
What should be Radhe Radhe? Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear.
So, what should be a right approach and mindset if you are in a situation, if you have a little bit of spiritual knowledge, and also you know your own consciousness of what is right from wrong, whether you got it from your parents or whether you got it from your samskaras from previous life, or the samskaras that you have in this life, and you're surrounded by people whose choices of lives we know that they are not right, but somehow they're so convinced that whether if they're lying or if they're manipulating, if they're doing those kind of things, they're so stubborn in their minds that they truly believe that they are so right. What is and especially when you are part of that process and kids are part of that process and you are spiritual your own self, what should be the right mindset, what should be the right question? Because if
Keep away from them. That's all. Simple. Keep away from them.
So what we should do? That's the question. If somebody in your family or workplace has opposite thoughts, quite different from what your convictions, then what to do? That's the question. If possible, try to ignore them. What other people think and do should not concern us or bother us. That's 12:15 Gita, chapter 12, sloka 15. Don't allow the thoughts and actions of other people to bother you, or your thoughts and actions to bother other people. 12:15. That is the best. Don't react at all. Remain unaffected, unconcerned. But if the person is closely connected with you, in your family member, or a person working with you in the same team, same project, then you have no choice but to interact. Then you can say respectfully, without anger, say, this is what you're thinking, doing is wrong. If you do continue this one, this will happen. This is not good for you or me. Please stop doing this one. You can say that one. If they comply, well and good. If they don't comply, if they continue to do, then you have to find some recourse. Recourse in a workplace is generally there is a grievance procedure in companies and government. Then you have to follow that procedure. Talk to your supervisor. If all these things fail, then you just have to accept it because you've done everything you could. And as your presence of prarabdha karma, you're supposed to are associated with this person because of karma. Then that is, you have to do the best you can under the circumstances. So, to summarize what I have said, 3 things have to be done. One is to prevent such occurrence. Try to avoid such person's company. Don't associate with them. Their views are different, their methods are different, their view of life is different from us. We can't agree. So no connection. That's the best thing. Prevent it. If that is not possible, then if that person, you have to work with that person, live with that person, then do. Second thing is remedy. Talk to that person, do whatever is possible without anger or jealousy or hatred. No anger. You can convince or do whatever is possible, you do. Remedy. If that fails, then you have to practice forbearance, deeksha. You are put in that position because of your karma or whatever. Any person who comes into our life in any capacity or relationship comes there because we have earned it. There's no chance here. There is no random connection, association. Everybody comes into your life as a family member or child or parent or spouse or brother or sister, sibling or co-worker. They are there for a purpose. That's what I learned. So then your third thing is, last thing is to deeksha, for practice forbearance. That will work out karma rapidly. No hatred. So I think it is Kabir Das who said, generally we try to criticize people who disagree with us or who blame us. No, he said, do the opposite. I don't remember the Doha completely. It says, Nindakanyare Rakiye Angane Koti Chavai, Bin Sabun Pani Bina Nirmala Karai Savai, something like that. These people who give you trouble, disagree with you, give you trouble, they are helping you actually to work out your bad karma. They take you to the cleaners without soap and water, they clean your ego. They are there for a purpose. People who are nice to us, and helping us and agree with us, they may or may not be so helpful. But those who criticize and give us trouble, they are doing more good service to us by helping us to work out our karma. That is
the reason why I ask is, I mean, I just can share like personally. The reason why I ask is, my fundamental question in my own mind was, all those steps have gone through. I have gone through all those steps. All the steps that Swamiji Apne, what you have mentioned, and finally, when I have taken the decision, I for myself, I don't have any grudge or anger or anything like that, but this is what I truly believe as a mother, that all these steps I have taken with patience and tolerance and everything. But here at the very end, Bhagwan has said, enough is enough. So now, fundamentally, this is the grounding that I'm taking, a spiritual grounding. And this is the answer that I have for the younger kids that I have. There are 2 younger kids a part of this process. And this is all I have for them. And I cannot see it any other way to say, from the spiritual point of view, this is all I knew that I had to take, the steps that I need to take. And because they're very young, I feel like even though I'm spiritually speaking to them and telling them that this is the course of action which needed to be taken, probably they will themselves take a little bit of time to understand this and digest it and accept it. But 1 second, give me 1 minute, okay? Kanna, give me 1 minute. So I didn't want to ask my monkey mind to say this is the right conclusion, but I wanted to hear from people like you who has been there, who have walked this path, to say, yes, Padma, spiritually, this is the right thing. When boundaries are crossed and you have tried everything that you can, spiritually, God is saying there are certain boundaries, you have to take those steps, even if it is happy or not, but as long as you know that it is according to the dharma and you are following your dharma as much as you can as a mother. So that was the reason why I asked the question. Thank you so much.
Okay, one more before leaving the topic. Nothing comes without a cause, good or bad. Swami Vivekananda said, very famous statement he has said, no misery comes to anyone except as one has paved the way for it oneself. We have done something to warrant this situation. Whether for good or bad, both good and bad, it applies to both good and bad. Now, in my personal, if I want, I can share some personal experience. Every day, I sincerely thank God for keeping me in the best place, best ashrama in this world, with the best people with whom I am living. I thank everything. This comes from my heart. Now, I ask myself, what did I do to get all these good things? In this life, I don't remember doing anything to deserve this, all these things that God has bestowed upon me. So, maybe in the past life, I don't know, I must have done something. So, Swamiji says, nothing good or bad also comes except as there is a cause and we are the cause. Except as I paved the way for it oneself. So, we have to accept it. If you can solve it, you can prevent it, you can remedy it, then you have to accept it. Without grudging, without anger, without lamenting. Best we can. Do the best we can do. That's all. But God will change circumstances. This is not permanent. Good news is nothing is permanent. Good and bad both are temporary. Someday this will end, this will change, suddenly go up, and then your situation will change.
Pranam, and thank you so much.
Yeah, pray to God for relief, and He will give you the strength.
Yes,
Things
Swami.
may not change, but we'll get the strength to remain unaffected by that one.
Yes, Swamiji. Yes. Koti pranam and thank you.
Right.
Bye.